decent place to live. Our children deserve a decent place to grow. A home is the most important part of civilization. It is a human right. We are not begging you. We are not begging you for a decent place to live. We are demanding.
2,700 a month, minus taxes, minus groceries, electricity, water, insurance, phone, gas, childcare, healthcare, and rent. How sustainable is this?
A sustainable living situation for me is not having to live paycheck to paycheck.
One thing that pops into my mind is, are we paying folks enough to be able to afford the minimum of what they need to sustain themselves and live a fruitful life?
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the individual median income in Arizona is $32,000 a year, which translates to $2,700 a month, minus taxes.
America's wages are ridiculous. You know, they're so low.
$2,700 a month. Is it enough to sustain yourself?
Obviously, hell no, because people are struggling.
Other thing is too, inflation hits a big part of it as well. Not just inflation, but the amount of inflation compared to the growth of income. So inflation's going up, income is not going significantly at that same speed.
The inflation rate of the U.S. is around 3% per year. This year, it was 8.3%. In 2021, Arizona saw a record increase in wage growth. That unprecedented growth was still outpaced by the inflation rate.
It's a survival thing. We're trying to find a way to survive and make it.
Be fair. You know, how much money do you need to have a happy life?
I have to be really deliberate about where I'm spending my money and keep that number constantly in my head in order to be able to think, okay, so am I going to be able to pay this and this on time? Do I have to juggle this bill in order to make sure that this other bill gets on time?
Some people, even that they do budget, you can budget, but if you're just not making enough, it doesn't matter. You can budget all you want, but there's necessities we need.
That extra $100 tacked onto my rent, that extra $200 tacked onto my rent, that means gas that I can't put in my car. That means food that I can't buy for myself.
I've been renting since I was about 19 years old when I got my first apartment. And, back then with the full-time job that I had, I was able to sustain a residence at an apartment complex, and it was feasible to do at that time.
From the last time I was looking for a place, which was back in 2016, rent had almost doubled. It was crazy.
According to real estate brokerage Colliers, the rents increased almost 80% from 2016 to 2021. Yet, during those same years, the median income only increased by 22%.
As time went on, I did notice, rent started getting gradually higher and higher. And then obviously in the more recent years now, where it's been crazy just over time, just seeing the prices go up so dramatically.
There are members of my family who are living with mental health disabilities and are not able to move out or be out or get out of abusive situations precisely because of that, because their low wage jobs are not enough to be able to afford a home, a suitable home.
The housing market crashed, and all of a sudden my landlord didn't own the house anymore. The new landlords came in, raised the prices all around, and I was like, I can't afford this. But by the time I told them that I couldn't afford, it was like $975. It happened over the course of a year because I didn't have a job, I had lost my place to live, I had to sell all of my things just to be able to get out so I didn't get an eviction. And then all of a sudden downtown started to shift.
Just to be able to have your own place, you basically are, mildly rich.
Property investors have been buying homes off the market in order to rent them back to a community that would otherwise buy the home to live there.
And this is as downtown is shifting again, and it's starting to get shiny, and new restaurants are coming in, and they're building all of these houses. And our landlord there, more just shy of doubled our rent.
The high rent prices has definitely limited just little things that I used to do with friends, go to a bar, have a drink, maybe drive to a game to watch it with a friend, maybe even do like an event in the sense of like you're gonna go play basketball, go play something. Now I don't go to them.
According to Rent.com, from 2021 to 2022, the rent in Phoenix has increased by 31.4%, with some individual units increasing by $800 a month from one year to the next.
I had nowhere to go. I literally had no place to go. And I was like, I can't go back to Chandler at this point. I had a whole life.
The fact that having to juggle these bills and having to think through what my finances look like, that just causes an extra amount of stress for me. And it makes it difficult to manage my demanding work schedule, to be able to support my family members and my friends. And if it were an ideal situation for me is not having to live paycheck to paycheck, to have extra money left at the end of the month, to be able to save for an emergency situation.
Me and my kids couch surfed. We were making do. We were doing what we had to do.
Rent in Arizona is increasing. It's getting higher and higher and more difficult to find housing that a person can afford. And the rise in rents puts me at risk of homelessness.
Investing companies such as Pretium use software to scan the market for new listings every few minutes, perform a repair or rent cost analysis, and send an automated cash offer within hours. On average, Pretium buys and renovates 100 houses a day.
At this point, having a roof over my head is top priority. And if I'm unable to pay my rent, then everything else goes down the drain.
It's a situation no one should ever be in. It's a frightening thing, and it's a source of great anxiety for me.
I'm working 2 kitchen jobs, making sure my kids get to school, trying to put gas in my car, and I'm still sleeping on a couch. I met my now partner. Their lease was up, and they realized that I was, for the most part, for me, I was like, I'm not homeless. I'm just staying with my friends. We have a place, there's a roof over our head. I'm able to feed my children. And then I was like, yeah, we're homeless. I came to the realization.
In 2020, Pretium filed the most evictions in counties where an eviction ban was in place, and they have been sued for allegedly executing a plan to extract even greater profits from their tenants by severely under-maintaining their homes.
I think that rent is rising in Arizona because there are people who need a roof over their heads, and there are other people who have the means to own the homes, own the properties.
If you're keeping track, I've been priced out of the Garfield twice. I have then went from the Garfield to Chandler. Then I went to sleeping in my car. Then I went to sleeping on people's couches.
Large corporations or large companies that are taking advantage of our state being lax on these regulations. And so what they're doing is that I think that they're purchasing up as much property as they can and setting the prices at whatever they want, and the state is not doing anything to protect tenants like me and tenants like my husband and tenants like multiple others of my friends that are just trying to make ends meet and have a roof over their heads.
We had a landlord that was out of state. He lived in Virginia, had no idea what was going on here. And so every year that we lived there, he increased the rent. And every time we signed a lease, he raised it more.
When we were looking for places to live, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units where I wanted to live for rent, but I couldn't afford any of them. And they're sitting empty because nobody can afford to live there. No one who can afford to pay that much wants to live in these neighborhoods that I love.
These investors and these corporations are making these cheap homes that people can't even afford to be in. No one can afford to be in those complexes. So what is the reason of you building them?
It's greed. It's trying to make as much as possible. And as they say, the poor make the rich richer because we're the ones working for the lowest dollar per hour or salary a year, and it's just horrible.
One day, we got a letter saying that we had to vacate the premises because he was going to sell the house.
The way evictions are run right now, it's not humane. I've seen situations where People literally get like 48 to 72 hours and then they have to be out of their residence. Otherwise, the law, they come and, assist in the eviction. And at that point, again, shelters or the streets, and some of these people have kids.
When we're looking at thriving wages, I think the minimum, the conversation is the minimum needs to be raised, right? $15 an hour minimum federally. If we can do that, then there will be a pathway for people to be able to stay in their homes. So I think the state has a lot of work to do when it comes to being able to support its community members and, like, honestly, a thriving wage, a living wage.
I think we don't exist except as a pool for exploitation.
If the guy that I rented from in Virginia wasn't able to buy in Arizona, or had to at least spend some amount of time here to see what the conditions were, I think it would have made a difference.
I would say stop being greedy to these corporate landlords. Like, there's only so much that you can do with so much money.
In the aftermath of the 2008 housing crash, Pretium solicited investments of $2 million with a projected annualized return of 15 to 20%. It ended up raising more than $1 billion.
Whoever sets up these policies that determine how developers can come in, buy land, and use that land need to stop giving them favors. They need to stop coddling them. They need to make them pay the taxes. They need to stop giving them special deals, because that's why they come.
Arizona needs to change its laws so that it's appropriate to assist people that are not as financially secure as some of the other people, the corporate organizations that are buying up the houses.
People or profit?
If there's a way that there could be a cap on how many properties one company can own, or like a site visit or something, then it would have made a difference for me in my apartment.
People should have the right to have a good life as much as possible. And yes, there are hiccups, there will be hiccups. But I have seen in Australia how well it works. Affordable housing is a thing, and it works well.
Venture capital has exploited real estate for rental investment, hiking up the cost of rentals while making a profit, in turn pricing out many first-time owners and displacing entire communities.
The state of Arizona could do a lot better by its residents if there was some sort of standards or regulations.
The system is so entrenched that it seems natural, even to the people who are oppressed by it most.
Do everything in your power to call your legislators, to pressure candidates, to talk to people that are in difficult living situations, convince them to make noise about it, because enough is enough. There are too many families that are losing their homes. There are too many families who are suffering for this to stay the way that it is.
As a community, we must band together and demand the change necessary for housing and rental affordability. Our existence as a community, as a neighborhood, as a family is at stake.
Rent is too high.
Rent is too high.
The rent is too high.
Rent is too high.
Rent is too high.
Rent is too high.
And rent is too damn high.
And rent is too damn high.
And housing is a human right, not a luxury.